First, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us today. I would like to extend a special welcome to Dennis Cassid, who is on his way from Eagles Pizza. Dennis, we thank you so much for your pizza. It's really a cult following here in New Albany. I know we have it every week. And thank you so much for the support of local veterans. Dennis will also be providing a copy of his book today to all attendees, Too Young to Die, Boy Soldiers of the Union Army, and you can also find it on Amazon. I would also like to take the time to acknowledge veterans and first responders in attendance, both those in person, Chief Rupp, and any others that are here, veterans and first responders, and also those that are virtual. Thank you so much for your service. Today, we're taking time to talk about the health of this special population, our veterans and first responders. Their selflessness and service keeps our community and country safe and strong. Sadly, statistics describe an unfortunate picture of a high suicide rate among veterans and first responders. 22 a day is an often quoted statistic, but some, including Save a Warrior, believe that this number may be underestimated and underreported, so the numbers could be potentially higher. According to the 2019 National Veterans Suicide Prevention Annual Report, published by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, the suicide rate for veterans was 1.5 times the rate for non-veterans adults, after adjusting for population difference and age and sex. 80,000 warriors were lost to suicide in the last decade. According to a 2017 Badge of Life report, it is estimated that 30% of first responders develop behavioral health conditions, including but not limited to depression and post-traumatic stress, as compared with 20% in the general population. In a study about suicidality, firefighters reported to have higher attempt and ideation rates than the general population. These findings highlight the continuing and increasing problem of suicide among U.S. adults and veterans and first responders, and the need for ongoing efforts to improve methods of suicide risk mitigation. Our aim today is to raise awareness, provide a forum to discuss this important topic with two very special guests, share resources and local community connections, and most importantly, consider tangible ways that we can make change here in our community. It is my great honor to introduce our guests today. First, Lieutenant General Ferreter is a Citadel graduate and retired United States Army Airborne Ranger. He spent the bulk of his time in the trenches with the troops, parachuted with paratroopers and rangers more than 200 times, and served as the lead conduit with the Iraqi government from 2008 to 10. General Ferreter served in various positions throughout his extensive military career as battalion commander in the 82nd Airborne, battalion commander of the 75th Ranger Regiment, and assistant division commander of the 82nd Airborne Division. He served in Operation Iraqi Freedom as deputy commanding general of the Multinational Corps, Iraq, after which he returned to be the J3 of the Joint Forces Command in Norfolk. During his career, he participated in Operation Restore Hope in Somalia and served 3 tours of duty in Iraq. In June of 2009, General Ferreter became commanding general of the United States Army Infantry Center, followed by duty as commanding general of the United States Army Maneuver Center of Excellence. As if that wasn't enough, General Ferreter was deputy commander for advising and training of the U.S. Forces Iraq as part of Operation New Dawn, then served as assistant chief of staff for installation management and commanding general, United States Army Installation Management Command in Washington, D.C. On June 19, 2018, General Ferreter was named president and CEO of the National Veterans Memorial and Museum in Columbus, Ohio. In his role here, General Ferreter leads the development of national community and funding base for the museum and strives to create a community gathering place where the general public can join veterans and members of the United States Armed Forces in celebrating the service and honoring the sacrifice made by veterans. General Ferreter, thank you for your lifelong commitment to service, veterans, and their families. Jake, a barber for more than 20 years, Jake has always held a passion for serving those who have served. Jake developed a passion for serving our veterans while working with a task force specializing in intellectual property crimes with a focus on individuals and organizations selling counterfeit goods and using the proceeds to support terrorist organizations. Jake is now a Save a Warrior ambassador and attributes Save a Warrior for saving his life and allowing him to change the course of his life. Save a Warrior is an original, warrior-led, well-grounded, and timeless journey for active duty military, returning veterans, and first responders. They say, give us a week, and we will change the way you see and live your life. Save a Warrior provides counseling services for suicide prevention and to address post-traumatic stress to veterans, military personnel, police, firefighters, and other first responders. They provide an alternative warrior-led holistic service that equips veterans, military personnel, police, firefighters, and other first responders with a community of support and effective techniques to overcome the symptoms associated with post-traumatic stress and suicidal ideations. Jake, thank you for your tremendous commitment and selfless service to our veterans and first responders. General Ferreter, it's an honor to have you here today. I would like to start first by just opening the floor to you for any initial thoughts or comments.
Well, thanks for putting this event on today. Thank you all for coming, and I know the pizza brought you here probably more than seeing me, but it's important. It's an important topic. And so I was in Columbus, and I got a call a couple years ago and asked if I wanted to be the president and CEO of the National Veterans Memorial Museum. And they said, and I said, well, where is it? And they said, it's in Columbus. And I said, well, I'm here in Columbus, Georgia. I don't see it anywhere. And they said, no, it's in Columbus, Ohio. And so Margie and I moved here 2 weeks later, and we saw the opportunity to, we're a total startup. The National Veterans Memorial Museum, total startup. It's truly supported by this community in Albany and by the city. And the idea is it tells the story of all veterans in a very unique way. And so when you go through there, if you've ever served, then it tells the journey that you took from being a nation called, leaving home, taking the oath of office, basic training, the brotherhood, sisterhood, wingman, battle buddy, range buddy, shipmate, and then where they served, letters to home, coming home, and transitioning. And this event today sort of is about that, as well as how do we help out transitioning and transitioned veterans. At the NVMM, Zach's in the back, and if you're not a member, you're welcome to join today. That helps us with our programming because we are national, signed into law by the president, but we get no federal funds, no state funds. So it's all about hustling and finding people that believe in what we believe. When COVID hit, we didn't shut, and I didn't furlough anybody, but instead I told our team, we're going to go virtual and digital. If you thought you were playing softball, it's now soccer. It's a different game, but the same goal. And so we actually onboarded people, and our fundraising because of virtual programming was fantastic. I'm just going to mention a couple and then share. So we have a virtual 5K run. You can sign up for that and run for someone who has fallen. If you don't know someone who's fallen, then we'll let you sponsor someone. We'll give you the name of someone. And so you get the T-shirt you get. We'll say Memorial Day run. You can run from that door 1.5 miles out and back. You can run from your front door 1.5 miles and out. You can walk. You can carry a rucksack, or you can ride a bike. So we made it easy for everyone to be a part of it. The Memorial Day that's coming up for many of us is all about great barbecues and picnics and family gatherings. But Memorial Day is for the fallen, those who died in the line of duty. So remember that and join the run. Zach will help you out in the back there. Additionally, we're doing an Inspire Youth series. And so for the chief, we have first responders, police, firemen, vets, and high schoolers. And so we'd love to engage this community because if there's inequality and injustice out there, there's also misunderstanding, as we found, whether it's in the streets of Iraq or in neighborhoods with gangs and groups, or whether it's just good high schoolers. Not till you get the conversation going, when you get to understanding and solve problems. So Inspire Youth Series, we do virtual field trips. So if you have kids in Zoom classes or in school, You don't have to get them on a yellow bus and drive to downtown. We'll bring the field trip to you. We do virtual tours for the vets' homes or elderly. And again, we can come to them at times when they're less likely to be traveling. We like to say we are open and we are connected, and we measure our success by impacting lives and making a difference. So thanks for that public service announcement.
Absolutely. We want to talk a lot more about that and the specifics that you're working on there, because I had no idea of all the outreach that you do. It's awesome. I would like to say this is casual or conversational. Pizza is here, food is here, so if you guys could just kind of one-to-one, just walk up there and grab yours and come back, and then kind of watch for your neighbor and go. We want to make sure you eat. It's very important that we feed you, so please do that. The mission of the National Veterans Memorial and Museum, which opened in 2018, is to share the stories and journey of the American veterans in order to lead a national conversation about the impact of the selfless acts of service and sacrifices of veterans and their families. Can you share a little bit about some of the programs like the Rally Point or the Youth Summit, some of those different things that are happening there?
Yeah, let's start with the Rally Point. So right after we opened, which was the 27th of October in 2018, I even before we opened, I said, the first Saturday of every month, we're going to do a Rally Point. And veterans can come in and we'll feed them brunch. And because the key to success is to have people connected with each other, to have some form of community. And so first of all, when they would come in, and especially after the first time, we knew if it was a new face. And so then you ask them right up, hey, you're new, where did you come in from? Where are you living? In my car. Okay, so we got a problem we're going to work on here. And we'll get to the bottom of that. Where are you working? I'm not working. Or what do you do for hobbies? And in those conversations, then these relationships start up again. And we've had a lot of people flat out say, I was in such a dark place. I was leaving my family. I split up with my wife. I was angry all the time. I was going to kill myself. And you guys saved me. And so, so the Rally Point now, we went virtual. So now instead of 100 people, we have about, by the end of 2 weeks on our social media in the follow-ups, in the 5,000s and coast to coast. So Rally Point's one of those things everyone can get involved with. And if there's a program you want to do, we've done everything, from just about equine therapy to bringing in a physical therapist who was a Marine captain. Her name's Teresa Larson, and she does adaptive training. We're training for adaptive athletes. We've had the Surgeon General and stuff like that. So those kind of programs. Similarly, fireside chats called Veteran Voices. And because what we really want in a almost PBS-like approach to have programming that can appeal to the bearded, tattooed, 9/11 crowd, and to the Vietnam crowd. If the Vietnam veterans who come in, we give them a certificate that says thanks for your service and a pin. Many of them never been thanked. And so there's a way to reach somebody. There's a way to reach anybody. And Inspired Youth, again, to let the kids know. And we'll grow Inspired Youth to multiple cities. We're talking to some superstars who want to help sponsor, have Inspired Youth Summit, and let them be fellows who for the rest of their life, rely on each other across the country.
Thank you. One thing I have found about general officers, it's like you have a special gene. They have these amazing quotes and phrases, and they're always like turning them out, and you're just like, let me write that down real fast. So there's a few of them today. One of them in our pre-discussion was, you can't roll up your sleeves if you're wringing your hands.
Yeah, that's a sergeant major saying more than a general saying, but I paid attention. And so this past summer when we saw the walking in the streets and the protests and all of that, well, at a certain point we gotta roll our sleeves up and do something. And so you can't boil the ocean. Right now.
I got that one.
but you can do something, often when you're applying for grants, if you're someone who does that, they always want metrics. Prove to me that the money I give you is, being done for work. Well, what price do you put on a single life? Or what price do you put on the confidence you give a teenage girl to say, hey, stop right there, take 2 steps back. I don't like the way this is going. I think it's priceless. And so, but you got to roll your sleeves up and do something. I think I tried to teach our team. People will support us if we're doing something for someone. If we're only telling a story, they'll support us for a while. But our mission is to never be called the old vets. Just some of you know what the old vets was. And so we're off and running in an innovative, creative, super team underneath me. And if they come to me and say, how do you want to do this? I don't like telling them. 2 words, inventing. Go ahead, surprise me and impress me.
And you talked a little bit about the Ready and Resilience program that's run at all Army bases across the world. It's a unit level mental health professionals. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we had this epidemic of suicides in the Army and sexual harassment in the Army, in all services actually, and as well as this veteran population. And so the Surgeon General of the Army, a 3-star woman named Patty Ward, great friend, and I were tasked to put together a program, and we coined it the Ready and Resilient program. And if you remember the old beer commercial, I said to her, I'm taste great and you're less filling. And so I believe that, I knew when I was growing up and my kids were growing up, if you kept them involved in sports or music or dance, if you kept them involved, then their self-esteem was higher, their energy was spent in productive ways, and they connected to people. Patty, Dr. Borough really did have to administer to those that were had some critical problems. And so medications and mental health professionals were provided. But I wanted to walk them back across that bridge. The Army's theme was Army Strong. And I said, well, if we all joined Army Strong, somewhere we got broken. So, what's the rehab in the mental health world to take someone back? And we've all had setbacks in our life, and time sort of heals. So getting them connected, getting that. So intramurals, runs, sponsoring date nights on post, sponsoring activities, after school activities for kids, Army 10 miler teams, all those kind of things were sponsorship. So again, for transitioning veterans, a veteran feels like a soldier, sailor, airman, Marine feel like they jumped out of an airplane with no parachute. And so if we can have an unblinking eye of carrying them into the next part of their life, then there's no chance for, like Sergeant Major Rice would say, for the bad guys to get out or the bad things to get into them. And so we've made a big emphasis. We know where every rifle in the Army is today, but we don't know where every soldier is, because when they permanent change of station, PCS, from Fort Carson, Colorado to Fort Bang, Georgia, they're unknown, and a lot of bad can happen, or they come into post and they get hoodwinked into some rental agreement or something. So getting kind of hands-on inspired leadership and carrying them from place to place was part of the Ready Resilient campaign also. But you wouldn't think that would be something, but from a bad move, anyone who's ever moved knows, stay away from mom. It's stressful. And so why take the hardest thing possible to make it harder? So the campaign resulted in taking the unemployment in the veteran sphere from $500 million a year down to $98 million a year unemployment. And so all these things just kind of go together.
Absolutely. Yeah, you said that every veteran leaves service and feels like they jumped out of an airplane with no parachute. And as we were talking, you said that veterans really need 3 things: 1, to be connected to others; 2, a strong self-image or a strong picture of themselves; and 3, healthy activities for themselves and their families. And we talked a little bit about the divorce rate and PTSD and all of those kind of things. I mean, can you share a little bit about why that's so important to have those things?
Well, I'm going to say soldier, but I mean Marines and Air Force and Navy, Coast Guard, and first responders, for sure. Their self-picture is so clear when they're serving. They have purpose, they have a mission, They have people they're responsible to take care of, and they have progression, and very predictable progression unless they do something foolish, and then suddenly they have total freedom, but they have no structure, and so as communities can wrap their arms around those three things, become important to say, and to know that you could all be sitting and talking, and it might sound to the veteran like it's a different language. And so everyone at the museum said to me, you'll be done at the talking event today at 13:30, right? So we translated into my speak, the time clock, military time. So helping them to find themselves, with a bigger thought that veterans are winners. They got, like I said, they got out of mom's basement. They got through basic training. They went to jump school or ranger school or flight school, and then they went out and they made a difference. So when they join your team, they're going to make your team better immediately. They're hardwired. They're like a Labrador with a tennis ball. They got to start fixing things right away. It's what they do. So that's how I describe it.
And Jake, you talk about this too. You said when we spoke earlier that they're like a pack animal. It's a brotherhood, the military, and then when they begin to transition out of that to civilian life, people don't know how to manage. So before we talk about that, I would like first if you could just kind of tell us how a barber came to be seated in this chair.
Well, first of all, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Angela, for your service. This is an honor to sit here with you as well, General. And the joke used to be I took a left turn in Albuquerque, like the old Bugs Bunny. How'd you get here? Because I took a left turn. So approximately 5 years ago, I had met a gentleman who founded Save a Warrior by the name of Jake Clark, who Jake lived in New Albany at the time, and he was a customer. And as barbers do, we tend to get close to our clients because there's something that happens as a barber where the saying is that there's two men that'll touch you in your life that aren't family, which is your barber and your doctor. So a lot of times when you break that 3 feet mold, you get close, you're handsy on someone, cut their hair, they open up and you kind of hear things. And Jay Clark stepped into my barbershop approximately 5 years ago, I believe. We met, and at the beginning he told me a little bit about what he did and what his background was, and we had some things in common, and we were talking, and he started telling me about this awesome program that he started called Save a Warrior. And he didn't know at the time, but my best friend was a veteran that had committed suicide. And so I paid attention to him from the first day that I met him, and learned a little bit more about his program and got to know some of the gentlemen that worked with him at Save a Warrior. And he had came into the barbershop with a friend of his that worked at Save a Warrior. His name was Brian Haggerty, and Brian Haggerty was a LAPD police detective for over 20 years that had worked undercover work and did anti-terrorism stuff. And we had a connection based on the work that I was doing at that time with these intellectual property crime raids, and just connected. And I had come from a background in the music industry and the nightclub industry, pre the barber industry, where my relationships were based on opportunistic relationships. People called me when they wanted something, when they needed something, when you could do something for them. And that's just kind of what I knew. Even as the town barber, everybody knows the barber, it's just that kind of relationship. I didn't really have any meaningful male relationships outside of my family. And after I met Brian Haggerty, who was from LA, I get a phone call like 3 days later, and Brian is like, "Hey, Jake, this is Brian Haggerty. And I just wanted to say it was nice meeting you." And I was like, "Sure, what can I do for you, Brian?" He goes, "Nothing. I just wanted to call you and say that it was really nice meeting you. And, I just think you're a great guy, and you really ought to, if you ever get a chance to come out to LA, you got to come out and see us." And I kind of put the phone and I looked at one of my fellow barbers. And he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Kick the guy's head off." And that's how foreign just a connection with men was to me, that I hadn't had anyone that just wanted to see how I was doing. I had no one to just ask how I was doing. And I started realizing that, this Jake Clark guy and these people around him are really good people. I didn't know why. And they were after me for a long time to come out and be what's called a witness with Save a Warrior. And there's a story behind that as well. But I assumed, hey, come out and see what we're doing in this great program that we're doing. They had just been featured in a couple-hour special that was on CNN with Soledad O'Brien called The War Comes Home. They had just embedded with them and followed them through. So I'd seen The War Comes Home and seen the video and saw these veterans that arrived at this, this thing that I didn't know anything about at the time, Save a Warrior. And then I was seeing the end of this 5.5-day experience, what these men and women were looking like in 5.5 days. And one of the gentlemen that was in the documentary reminded me of my best friend that took his life. And long story short, they kept after me, and I finally, after doing some work with Save a Warrior, a fundraiser project, had realized that everybody I meet in this organization are just really good people. I'm going to take them up on them. I'm going to go out and be a witness to their program. And so I flew to Malibu, and December of, I believe, I would say 2017, 17-ish, and showed up for what I thought was going to be me witnessing the work that these gentlemen do for these returning veterans. And so I show up at Pepperdine University, which is where this organization kicked off of its cohorts, which the 5.5-day experience we call cohorts. And I followed all these veterans that were in the program and I walked up to the top of the auditorium, and one of the gentlemen looked at me, who was a LAPD police officer. They said, "Where in the hell are you going?" And I said, "I'm going up here to witness." And he goes, "Oh, they told you that lie." They said, "There's no such thing as witness. Get down in the front row with these men." And so I had this internal struggle of, I'm not a veteran. What am I doing here? I'm taking the seat from some veteran that really might need the seat. And that was then. And I went through this experience, and my cohort brothers, I went through with 14 men. I was cohort 049, and these men were Army Rangers, Green Berets, 2 police officers that had lost 2 of their partners on the police department in Arizona, EOD techs. It just, I was in this world that I wasn't used to, and I did not feel like I belonged. And so for me, it took me a day or two to kind of like get out of that mode, like, I don't belong here. I shouldn't be here. What I found years later was Jake Clark knows exactly what he's doing when he meets people. And that, at least in my faith, I believe that God takes people like chess pieces and puts them where they need to be at the time they need to be. And I went through this program and had a life-changing experience alongside these men that had a life-changing experience. And people will tell you they'll serve in the military and go through Save a Warrior, and at the end of the week, sometimes they're closer to the brothers and sisters that they went through Save a Warrior because of the vulnerability and what you share and what you experience during this process. So I go through Save a Warrior. I have this phenomenal experience, and okay, now what do I do? This is a warrior-led program. I'm not a veteran. I'm not a first responder, even though I'm working in intellectual property crimes. I'm doing it more as a specialist or consultant, not as a first responder. And I was kind of in this mode. And then Jake kind of pulls me off the side and says, "We're going to build this in Ohio. What we do out here," and they've been out there, I believe, about 4 years at the time. And he said, "We're going to do this in Ohio. I have this vision. It's going to be called Warrior Village. We're going to create it, and I need you to help me. You know people in New Albany, you know people in the area."
And it started here.
So it started in Malibu, but Ohio's Warrior Village started from conversations here. Our headquarters was here in New Albany, Ohio, and Jake lived in New Albany. Of course, I was here. We had another Saul alumni, Adam Carr, who is a Green Beret that had went through Save a Warrior and has since now, to this date, is our executive director. He kind of tasked Adam and I to go out and find some of the things we need. We do equine therapy, we do ropes courses. We use a lot of things during this program that we really needed facilities that we didn't have at the time. And so we bought Dave Longerberger's property that was out in Newark, and we turned that and converted it into Warrior Village. We started working on the facility, putting new roofs on, getting it ready for these warriors to show up. And I was tasked with Adam Carr to go out and find these other services that we needed. And so it got to where, okay, we have everything we need. Hey, are you going to show up? And so the way that Save a Warrior works is someone goes through the program, and then after they get out and they're doing the work, and we can see they're doing the work within 6 months to now, we've made it a year. they come back and shepherd. So the gentlemen or the women warriors that go through this program are led through by other warriors that have sat in the seat. So the people that are walking you through this program could be anywhere from infantry guys, first responders, police officers, SWAT officers, Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Green Berets, Delta guys. We've had all the different initials, FBI, I mean, you name it, they've been through this program. So you don't really know who they are at the time, but they lead you through. And then when you get out, you do the work, and eventually you come back and you lead people through. You know, we say that Save a Warrior is a spiritual initiation that informs a daily practice with an emphasis on serving others. So when these guys get out, that connection that the general is speaking of is really important for their success. And so I was asked if I was going to come to the first one and help shepherd, because it's expensive to fly people out from around the country to shepherd, and they wanted to really rely on some people that were local. And so the first cohort, I was a shepherd, and I was like, I didn't really know what to do. And they're just like, sit in the back, hold space. You don't have to do anything. Just sit with these men, you know, just hold space and listen to them and just walk them through it. That turned into several other cohorts. And before you know it, I spent several years away from my family because of the work that was so important. And I got to witness these miracles. And, you know, Jake said nobody ever creates a job, or nobody ever is given a job at Save a Warrior. You just make your own. And I just showed up, and once I saw the work that was being done and these miracles that was being done, I just never left. And so that's how a barber. I had other things to do. You know, I had other plans in my life. And when I started realizing the brokenness that was existing amongst our veterans, and that Jay Clark had come up with something that he was onto at work. Save a Warrior is a solution for the veteran suicide epidemic and first responder epidemic. And once you know, I compare it to if you walk into a room with someone and they go, hey, I figured out the cure for cancer, and you can go cure people too. Here, take it. You can help me do this. It's hard not to do that. It's hard to go back to your regular job. And so I started doing that about 4 years ago, and it's grown into a program that had served a few hundred people when I first got involved. And now we've had over 1,400 veterans and first responders.
Well, and we're going to watch a video.
Yes.
If we can, could we? Hi, I'm glad you're here. We got the lights down, can we play that? And you'll see it on this TV here and in the conference room. We'll give you a snapshot of what Jake's been describing.
And this video is from Jake Clark receiving the Eagle Rare Award, where they donated $50,000 to our organization. It's just a snapshot.
"22 vets a day are committing suicide, taking their own lives. If we don't do something, then we're going to lose military veterans in Holocaustal numbers.
These men come here in pain, suffering, disillusionment, dejection, depression, anxiety, resignation, defeat, hopelessness, ashamed, a sense of being profoundly broken, with what I like to call a deep-seated sense of a system of false beliefs. This is Sunday. This is day 0. We're just here. Okay? This is not a happy snap. This is just where we are. Okay? You give me enough time and you're willing to be open, we're going to get to a solution here. We're going to get to one very quickly. The question is, how badly do you want to heal? Okay, I need the room quiet. Take a breath. I'm scared. I've done this 50 times. I still get scared on Sunday afternoons.
He lost everything creating Save a Warrior.
He quit grad school and put everything he had into Save a Warrior. And it was going to either make him or break him?
He was determined in 2012 to fix the suicide problem amongst our veteran community.
Before I could, and I had all kinds of strategies.
He's a wounded healer. He put the program in place to save himself and save others. Really one of the first people I've ever met in my life that practices everything he teaches. Jay Clark saved my life.
What you're gonna see in that film, we unpack it as a classic hero's journey. This is three things: separation, initiation, and return with treasure. That's all it is. You know, why wouldn't someone in that much pain kill themselves? I think the reason we want to kill ourselves is in this desperate attempt to feel something because we want to live so badly. We just have so lost our way to feeling what it feels like to live inside of a normal human experience ever again. And when people begin to understand that what we're suffering from is not what they think we're suffering from. They think that we're suffering from what was seen in theater or life on the streets as a first responder, when really there's stuff that happened so long ago that's forcing its way to the top. And once we start working on what we call pre-trauma, the things that happened in our early development, and communalize that grief and process that grief and ritualize that grief, it reframes the other stuff in an instant. And you open up this whole other space to walk through, and it's like releasing 1,000 pounds of shame. And now you're like, wow, I can actually feel my feelings. I can actually be in this experience called life, because if I have to go back to that, I'm not going to make it.
I know he's hurting. He's hurting bad. And I know it's necessary, because to get to the other side, you gotta go through the pain. I want his pain to stop. And only he can do that. I can't take away his pain, but I can be there to listen, and I can be there to support. Even as much pain as he's in, I hope he gets through the other side in the time it's supposed to take, and not later.
As soon as we walk in here, we're already connected. And because they're so sensitive.
We have an equine day, but we don't ride horses. That day is about communication and relationships. And how do we tie that groundwork that we're doing with horses into communication and relationships with each other, with our kids, with our family members, our co-workers.
He took something that's not new, something that society used to do, this idea of tending to the spiritual nature of war. He brought a modern incarnation of a very primitive archetypal approach to healing, personal transformation, and empowerment. And what he did is he brought an educational variety of that kind of a program here to educate veterans about, hey, this is what you're going through, and this is how you achieve that next level of spirituality. And I'm not going to focus with what's broken in your head. I'm going to focus with what's broken in here. Because this isn't healed, it doesn't matter what you do up here.
He needs an inch, he needs that hand. He needs to hold that hand. There it is! Yes! That's it! That is it!
Jake says something like, we don't make miracles, we witness them. And that's what I hope for these guys. I hope that they go home, they repair what they need to repair, and they continue to search for their purpose, because we all have a purpose. These guys have a purpose. They had plans to not be here, and now they have hope to have a better life. I can see it already. Guys look different. They look different, So from day zero to now, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot going on, and it's all by design. Thank you, Jay Clark.
Jake deserves this award because he's the genius behind the program that's going to end the suffering in the veteran community.
I've never met a man who has been so passionate about one topic in my whole life.
Jake does stuff that other people know is right, but don't want to do.
I'm honored to accept the award on behalf of a lot of people. What that award does for us is it helps us save more lives. It puts more people in the conversation, it puts more warriors in the seats, and allows them to have this experience. And on top of that, it just opens up other levels of funding for Save a Warrior. Saw is a solution, a powerful solution. Saw is an answer to a problem that a certain person is carrying. And if it is the answer to that problem, it's the only answer. It's the only thing that's going to solve it for a particular type of person. If you need to sit in that seat, if you really need to sit in that seat, that's the answer. Because that answer is going to give you a profound sense of relief that's going to lead you to the next set of doors that might provide you the cure. And you may be willing to accept the pain of the cure. Saul is the thing that gets you ready for the pain that is to come.
Let's talk about ACEs scores. After that, there's a lot to hit on. I want to talk about day 0, but I think before we talk about day 0, let's talk about ACEs scores. The CDC's Adverse Childhood Experiences Study uncovered a stunning link between childhood trauma and the chronic diseases people develop as adults, as well as social and emotional problems. This includes heart disease, lung cancer, diabetes, and many autoimmune diseases, as well as depression, violence, being a victim of violence, alcoholism, drug addiction, post-traumatic stress, and suicide. The average person ACE score, which is Adverse Childhood Experience, is 2. Save a Warrior on average is 5. 78% of participants have a score of 4 or more. This equates to a 1,400% increase likelihood of suicide. Can we talk about that? ACE scores.
Yeah, so typically in most organizations, the work that you've seen being done before, and mind you, we're a warrior-led program that was clinically informed, and we're in addition to, not instead of. We realize that therapists in the medical model works, and we're not devoid of that. We saw that there was a need for something else for the people that have been through the VA and that have been through all these programs. We say that Save a Warrior is for the person that's kind of looking for the last house on the block. You know, a lot of times there's been multiple attempts on their life. They've tried all the different therapies, medicated, et cetera. But Jake had kind of known, and let me give a little bit back to that to lead to the ACEs, is he started this. Jake was an enlisted guy who went back as an officer, got out, was an LAPD police officer, became a Secret Service agent, and then ended his career as an FBI agent. We call him Jason Bourne. And but every day for 19 years, he thought about taking his own life, and he didn't know why. And he understood that there was this epidemic amongst our returning veterans of suicide that really wasn't talked about at the time. And so he dropped out of grad school. They laughed him out of his graduate school at Pepperdine when he said that he was going to try and solve the suicide epidemic amongst our returning veterans. And it's kind of funny that it was so successful that we now went back, and that's where we're holding our program at Pepperdine, and he's since gone back and got his degree, et cetera. But Jake early on did this out of the trunk of his car, and he knew there was a connection to family of origin trauma, but maybe not quite as much, you know, in the beginning, because this was kind of treated as a moral injury from combat related. You know, this guy has PTSD because of what he saw in combat. And absolutely what happens in combat is important, relevant, and can cause, and does cause post-traumatic stress. What we were seeing early on was that who is joining the military, who's becoming a police officer, who's becoming a firefighter. These are typically people that want to become the protectors they never had, or to be able to protect themselves, or, you know, people that wanted to get away from something. And that's not everyone that joins the service. There are people that join it, you know, out of duty, and most of these people that I'm talking about still want to serve. They want to be someone. They want to have connection, like the general was saying. But what we noticed early on, Jake knew that there was a connection to family of origin trauma. And so about 4 years ago, it struck him about ACEs, and he'd seen this study and, started looking at our actual community, our populations coming through Save the Warrior and what the data was showing. It's exactly what you saw. Well, we realized that two people would go to combat, serve together, witness the same things, experience the same things, and come back. And one warrior would be completely fine and connected, and one maybe wasn't. And the difference was one usually wasn't from family of origin trauma home, usually had low ACEs, and the individual that was sitting in our seat typically had some form of family of origin trauma.
And what happens on day 0? And why does that work? And why is it effective in beginning to get these people unstuck? You say you're not a cure for anything. You help to get them unstuck. So what happens there?
Yeah, Save a Warrior is more of a catalyst. What we do is we tell, there's this view with the warriors when they come that they're broken, and they feel broken, and that feeling is real. Their families a lot of times, their coworkers, but we view it more as stuck, that we think that they're stuck, and that based on our day 0 that you and I spoke of is just kind of a way to let them know that you're not here for what you think you're here for. Most of these warriors show up at our program thinking they're there because of combat. And absolutely, picture someone that's raised in a home where maybe there's poverty. And the ACEs score in general it's 10 questions that covers all areas of family of origin trauma. So, poverty, abuse, sexual abuse, drug addiction, incarcerated family members, mental illness, et cetera, et cetera. And these scores are derived from asking 10 questions based on everyone that you can answer yes to, you get a score. You give yourself 1, you get a score of 0 to 10. And so what we do early on is we kind of relate that to the fact that if you're from that home where maybe your score is 5 or 6, your glass is already 3/4 away full when you go to combat. So now what you see downrange, that moral injury that you see, absolutely it's a result of it, but it's not always the main cause. So if we only treat the combat related side of it and don't focus on the thing under the thing, which is the family of origin trauma, we're not really getting to the root of the problem. So day 0 is just really our way of kind of letting them understand what they're going to experience over a period of now 80 hours. And that you're not here for what you think you're here for. And we kind of go over a little bit of the science and the background of what we now understand to be why most people sit in our seat. So,
General, I'd be curious about your thoughts on Save a Warrior and how it can complement the work that's happening that you're aware of with the museum and in the community in general.
Yeah, I think I met with Adam Carr one time, and I don't fully agree with the premise that people join the military because they have problems with growing up. And so, in fact, I really disagree. But the people you're seeing, surely.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, I'm speaking specifically about our population that we're seeing because my son is currently in the military right now as well.
Yeah. That's my daughter, Mary Whitaker. She served in the Army. I hope it's not because of her family upbringing. But what I would say is, so at the National Veterans Memorial Museum, no dreariness authorized. So we're going to tell all the stories. We're going to take on every issue, but we're not going to get dreary about it. And because we're not going to wring our hands. We're going to roll up our sleeves and find a way to help whatever it is. If you boil down mission statements, sort of thing, in the end, it's, we help. And if you talk about the company, the Ferreter group that I run, the question is, we help. And then the answer, how can you help us? Well, what helps you? So we have 9,100 golfers today in the Veteran Golfers Association. And after 5 years of 9,100, it grew. It started at 10, and then it grew to 100, and it grew to 1,000. Not one suicide. And so what's key is to have the right tool in the toolbox and apply that right tool to the right person in the right group. The Red Sox Foundation, run by the Cohen Institute in Boston, they do family immersion as well. And so I'm that advocate for yes, everybody, let's find out. And you know, if you, again, sports metaphor, you know, if you show up with a ball glove and they're bouncing basketball, then you're on the wrong court. So we got to get them to the right. We got to get them to the right. So the real question to answer is, you know, how do you determine where a person fits? And then, or if you were to run it over, you know, is their family set? Is their financial set? Self-image set? Is there healthy habits set? Do they eat well? Do they sleep well? This continuum of looking at the whole picture then means, you know what this person really needs is a job. It's not even a job, it's a profession. Let's get them into New Albany. Let's get them hooked up with a great company. And because that's the bigger problem that cascades into the little ones. Or this person needs 80 hours, you know, and save a warrior. And then we can go to the next one. So I think that the key is to figure out what problem we're solving or how we can help, if you want to say it in a positive way, and then help take action.
Finding the right tool, I think that's an excellent point. You're not going to go after a fly with a hammer. You need to.
Well, also, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. But if you have a hammer in an open mind, then you know, why should I be trying to apply this to this person when really what this person needs is continuing education, like we do with Ohio State for our vets, or jiu-jitsu, like we do for empowerment, or Inspired Youth Series, like we do for kids to get to know police and first responders. You know, and then you have a full toolbox of opportunity.
Well, I think that's the benefit of even beginning these discussions is what are the tools that are out there? Because to be honest, before we spoke, I had no idea that those programs were being run out of that Veterans Memorial Museum. So amazing opportunity to connect those tools to our population of first responders and veterans in the community. So, which we are called to do. I think you're helping New Albany and will do. So I'm grateful for we talked about the OSU leader certification, which I want to get back to as well. Even the Veterans Golf Association, bringing a championship or a tournament here. We'll call it the tournament golf. What do you call it?
Yeah,
tournament? Okay. So obviously, I think they can complement one another. I think the work that you do there is definitely unique and special.
Let me make a positive comment on that too. Sometimes we'll do the rally point and someone will come up and I'll oh my goodness, there are issues that a cup of coffee and some camaraderie are not going to solve. And we're, whether it's hands-on inspired leadership and we're helping people, or whether it's rally point, we know what our boundaries and limitations can be, our capacity is, but we also know we have partners. And that's the most important thing, that all these groups who want to help out to get to know each other and just build this network of, that's where you need to go next.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that's something I want to talk a little bit about the beginning and the science behind the work that you do, because you start with kind of an understanding of post-traumatic stress and you work with your team on that. And maybe we start there. Can you give a summary of kind of what Save the Word does to interrupt that process that happens?
So we're everything we do is novelty, and we're dealing with a particular population that's not, you know, and I probably should have clarified that. I'm glad that he brought that up. That our statistical data, when I'm speaking about, is that individual that Jake was talking about at the end of the video, for that person that needs to sit in the seat. And we're typically dealing with somebody when they come to our program. They went to all the retreats, they've done all the different programs, they've done the counseling, they've done the things, and they've told us, we've had people that said that I came here, if this didn't work, I was walking out into the ocean, I was going to kill myself here. And so we're a very specific program geared at someone that maybe has tried the traditional model, and that model hasn't worked. We do not, you know, like, our goal is to get them unstuck, allow them to understand what's going on, to understand the shame side of it and be able to deal with that, be able to grieve, have the science, and then set them with some SMART goals and send them out into a community of healing with programs like what they're doing at the National Veterans Museum and thousands of organizations around the nation. So for us, everyone that comes through our door is different. And we have to approach that on a different level. But really where we're basing it off on is who we see. So on day 0, we find out what those ACEs scores are. And we pretty quickly know, and we do some icebreakers and things that allow us to kind of get assessed. And not only that, they've been through a pretty rigorous rostering session with our rostering team. Like if someone just gets on and applies, they get a phone call really quickly, and then we set an appointment to roster them. And that's a long process because we have to make sure that we're right for the people. As the general said, you know, there's some people that are outside of our pay grade. We don't try to be who we're not. But for the individuals that we feel like will be successful through our organization, we try to assess that through the process. And so we're kind of a novel experience. And we explain to people, like, if you've ever gone into a movie for a couple hours and you've left kind of this known world to go watch this movie, you immerse yourself in the characters and in the drama and in the story. Well, that's kind of what our experience is. You show up and it seems like it's going to be a long experience, and it's over like that. And these men and women at the end of it usually don't want it to be over because it's that quickly life-changing. And we use a little bit of everything. We do some equine therapy. We do high ropes courses to kind of awaken the part of these men and women that has been kind of dormant for a while. We do addiction discussions. We talk about family of origin trauma. We use some motion pictures and some what we call kind of like real therapy to kind of break down, because you're trying to teach scientific and spiritual understanding to people that don't understand science. And a lot of them show up and don't have any faith in anything. And so for us, it's really trying to kind of get to some really deep places really quick. As the general said, we don't tell war stories. There's only one time during our program where we discuss what happened in Moscow. We don't tell war stories. That's done, you know, a group of guys struggling with post-traumatic stress on a hunting trip telling war stories is not going to fix PTS. Now, the connection that it has, which is why it's important, now when they come to us, we can deal with that. And then we can send them out to the communities where they have that connection. Everybody is put on this planet for love and connection. That's the one thing, whether you're a veteran, first responder, or whether you're just an individual. And these men that we're talking about, and women that we're talking about, these warriors, some of them are coming from these homes that weren't great, and they're going in where they are somebody, and they do have duty, and they have responsibility, and they have, you know, things put out. They know what they have to do. Everything he said, everything the general said in his opening, and then they leave, and they're not getting out with all the guys they served with them. So they're getting out a lot of times by themselves. So getting them connected in the community is really important. But for our community, we have to deal with some things first. And then what we do is when you leave Save a Warrior, we hook you up with the right rooms of healing. So now you go back to your counselor, you go back to your community, you get involved with the programs like they're doing. You walk into any of the many rooms of AA, NA, ACOA, etc. And now we've kind of removed the crap. Like they know why they're there now. We've had people go to their counselors and for a decade and you know dance around everything and struggle, and they come to us and they admit the thing that they never thought they would admit, and they deal with the thing they never thought they would deal with. Now they walk back in the room, they said, I never told you this, but this, and she's like, now I can help you. So we're really kind of a catalyst. You know, if you have a struggling veteran that is dealing with addiction and they go to rehabilitation, they're more likely to be successful going through rehab after an experience like ours. So yeah, the science is really important. We are a spiritual program that's very novel, and we're tending to a spiritual problem. So we come at it a different way, but we understand the clinical side of it too, because a lot of what we do is very clinically informed. So yeah, it's really important to kind of know your population and kind of know where to direct them once they leave with the property.
Well, and I think you do a really great job, and you discussed that with me at length, really that continuum of care. You're walking them to these continued care rooms of healing after they leave the program. You're not like running through and leaving them to their own devices. So I think that's a really important point to make, and something that's difficult to kind of wrap your brain around, but you mentioned it, and I think it's valid that, and we see it in this community too, just the stigma of mental health, and many of these men and women don't want to get on the list. So if they go seeking care in a traditional way, they're afraid of losing their badge or their guns. I mean, can we talk about that?
Yeah, as a first responder, if you come forward as a police officer and tell your sergeant right now that, hey, I'm struggling with some mental issues, first thing they do is they take their badge and their gun, which also can identify them. They're taking away my identity. And so a lot of these guys and women do not come forward out of fear of that. So they don't get the help that they need. And we can even contribute this. This is a whole different conversation. We can contribute this when we see excessive use of force and things like we're dealing with today. A lot of times that's untreated post-traumatic stress out of fear of losing everything they have, or at least the thought of. So that's really important. What we do too is trying to remove that stigma.
Let me add something there. Yep. The other side of it is we've had a lot of soldiers get wounded and return to duty. But if you identify wounded mental health, you won't return to duty. You know, I had friends, general officers in the combat zone that broke down and had to be flown. And 6 months later, they're out of the army. Rather than saying, oh, what was it? Yeah, what was it that took you to that point where you broke? Okay, now let's make them Army strong again. Let's walk them back across the bridge. So I've worked, you know, as hard as I ever could to say, you know, not only is the stigma of immediately, but also they're always going to say she's the one that broke down. You know, he's the one that so and so got extended in Baghdad for 7 months because so and so broke down. You know, he couldn't go home to his family because that guy couldn't come back. I think we got to get somewhere on that as well as once identified. You know, you break your leg on a parachute jump. You know, luckily I never did, but 6 weeks later you're jumping. You know, but you freeze in the door because you're afraid to jump, you'll never get another plane in the air with a parachute. That's the real stigma.
Yeah. And I'd like to add on to that. That's really kind of my goal in this community outside of Saving Warriors, to really change the legislation some states have. And, you know, that's part of that day zero experience is there's this belief that if someone is stuck, if someone's dealing with post-traumatic stress, that's why we call it post-traumatic stress. You won't hear us use the D. We'll say that for the clinicians. Because there's something tied to having that disorder. And there's a belief that post-traumatic in itself is mental illness, which left untreated, any kind of trauma can lead to any other kind of isms, alcoholism, you know, abuse, violence, any of these number of things. And so we really get into kind of like where you were, what you experienced based on this number. You cannot be in this room. It's not here, it's here. And so for us, it's really getting to the heart of letting them know that that's why I said you're not broken. You're not mentally ill. Absolutely, there are people that come through our program that are battling certain sorts of, that's not our job. And so for us to let them know that, and then because we are a warrior-led program, we are not clinically led. We have great clinicians and programs of higher learning that work with us, but we're a warrior-led program. So, you know, picture AA. Alcoholics Anonymous was a program that was started by 2 men that wanted to quit drinking. It was supposed to be one meeting, and now it's one of the largest peer-led programs in the world. And you know, we'll tell you it's because somebody got pissed off and took their coffee pot and started another meeting, and it's grown and it's grown and it's grown. And so for us, it's kind of that same thing is call us up, we'll roster you. Our roster will know who you are, but if you want to come through as Bob Smith, we just need to get you help. We just don't want you to kill yourself. We just want you to get unstuck. And the funny thing is that everyone that comes to our program that doesn't want to be known is the first guy a week out of the program. We're looking at his hometown paper. He's on telling a story about how it saved his life. So, but yeah, we're not required to, you know, if a police chief calls me and says, hey, my guy went through there, what do you tell you? I'm not required. I'm not a clinician. I'm not bound by HIPAA. So yeah, it just gives them another option because there is this fear amongst veterans and first responders that if I get online and hit send, I'm on a list. I'll get red flag laws. Won't be able to own my gun. I won't be able to, you know, and it's a legit fear. I have tons of people that have come through our program that the second that they went to their bosses and said that they were struggling, they found themselves blackballed. They found themselves, you know, nobody wanted to work with them. People would bully them and, you know, they're weak or whatever. And I just want to give, you know, props to our chief that's here. He is been on the forefront, at least in the fire service, of being like, what can I do for my guys? And so many people don't want to have this conversation. And so these guys have legitimate reasons. There are people that have come forward to say that I'm struggling and have lost their jobs and lost their careers and lost their pensions and which led to divorce and lost everything. So why would I come forward? So.
Well, we'll begin with the end in mind. I think the statistics about the program are impressive. You have a 99.9% success rate. You've had 1,400 through. What's happening at Michigan State University certification program?
So we've worked with a few different programs, and the head of the MSW program in Michigan State, her husband had tried for years to get some assistance, came through our program, had such success that she called and said, hey, I need to know what you guys are doing down there. So her and another head of her department came down and went through a program, saw it, was life-changing for them as well. And they understood that this is something that needs to put into traditional practice as well. So what they did was they started the first of its kind in the country for their MSW program, which is a certification for working with veterans with post-traumatic stress. And we work with tons, we won the Harvard Brain Trust Award, the WebMD Award. We've worked with Ohio State. They're currently working with Ohio State to do a lot of work. And I will tell you, 3 years ago, police chiefs, fire chiefs, people in the government did not want to have conversations with us. It's hokey what you're doing. And then what happens is the types of people that are coming through our program, we've had, just in our program, we've had Sandy Hook first responders. We've had LAPD, almost all major police departments, 9/11 first responders. We've had people on the Bin Laden raid. I mean, like there's this belief that everybody's okay. You would be surprised, and I get emotional when I think about it, how many people have sat in my barber chair from multiple departments. And I would say, if I was just being conservative, maybe 500 different first responders from departments all around the state that came for a haircut because a guy they knew went through our program that came through here. And we've rostered probably 20 first responders out of this barbershop, just from people that come because they need to have a place they can go where they know it's not going to cost them their job. And we don't advertise. I mean, we do this. We don't advertise. What happens with us is someone goes through the program, they serve with a guy. That guy sees that, hey, I was afraid of you, or I thought you were gone, or what'd you do? And they're like, let me tell you what I did. And then that guy rosters. So, yeah, it's Michigan State and all these other higher levels of learning. And Jay Clark now is actually working on his PhD at Stanford to try to understand how we can also bring this into the youth development, et cetera, like we talked about. So.
Well, there's 850,000 veterans in Dayton, Columbus, and Cincinnati area. So this is definitely something, and I think you're right. I think there are very different tools, and I think we need access to all of them. General, you spoke a little bit about the OSU Leader Certification through the John Glenn School of Public Policy at OSU, and I thought it was really profound because you said some of the kids that are coming through there, they're getting GEDs and high school diplomas trying to better themselves. They were on night patrol while their counterparts were at night school. I mean, can you talk a little bit about that as a tool for these veterans and responders?
Yeah, so when shortly after, not about me, but when I was getting hired, and they asked, what do you think of the National Veterans Memorial Museum? People hired me. I said, the building is stunning and it's beautiful. And, first out of the Saddle Peninsula, you can't miss that something special is going to happen. You go inside and you see the historical timeline and you see the alcoves and you hear the stories, and it's amazing. And the journey that everyone takes. But I said, frankly, it's insufficient to our need. And they said, oh my God, we put, many $1 million into this, to do this thing and to make it special. And I said, and it is special, but our needs are really wide. We got to go from Tampa to Tacoma and from north to south and touch lives. And they said, okay, it's kind of like, okay, so advance, what are you going to do? So I said, well, we'll do this thing called Rally Point. We'll bring them in and take care of it. And I said, and we'll create, leader certification courses, and veterans can use their GI Bill and they can get credit. And then when the DHRs of the world are looking for promotions or advancement, then they'll be competitive within their company. And oh, by the way, it makes them better, it makes the company better. So it's a win-win-win. And so I was very lucky in those first weeks. The great leaders of this town walked me around to meet the other great leaders of this town. And so I met with Trevor Brown, Dean Trevor Brown at the Ohio State University. And he said, well, is there anything I can do to help? I said, yeah, we're going to start a leader certification course. And he said, slap the table, great, And so we've run 2 tranches of it with 18 veterans in each one. On the first one, and great companies like Patel help sponsor it and all of that. So we scholarship for the veterans. We help them if they don't have the Montgomery JAG bill or post 9/11 JAG bill. On the second one, I insisted that it not be just people with a bachelor's degree, because now you're not changing anything. It's the same. So I said a high school degree, GED, associate's degree, it doesn't matter. Let's get them, because if you always have the same gate, then only the same people get through, right? But if we really want to impact more broadly, let us go. And they were wise enough to do that. And so now we're setting up our 3rd tranche of it. And I envision in time other schools as well, other opportunities, or just creating a network of programs that already exist, and then create access. So a lot of times we're more, we can be collect the dots and then connect the dots oriented than invented from whole cloth sort of thing. So it's very successful. And now 3 or 4 of our race teams are the buddies that met each other during both physical and in-house schooling, or had to go Microsoft Teams, virtual or Zoom, virtual as well. But now they're getting together and they're running, next week, all meeting in such and such place and doing their 5K. And that's the point, that you don't know how you're going to connect them to each other, but you know that when you connect them, then things get better.
Absolutely. Straggler control, for sure. Yes, and the museum and memorial has reached over 40 million people online into various programs, so its reach is wide. And likewise for Save a Warrior, now you're going to be in Warrior Village in Newark.
Yeah, so we just had a new village that was donated to us, and we're actually building the Center of Excellence and for post-traumatic stress. And the reason that we're relocating to Hillsborough is because of the fact that not only was this gorgeous property that's very large donated to us, but we partnered with the DAV, and they've actually partnered with us and gave us $1 million grant towards developing this facility to increase our throughput, because that's the largest thing, is we can only serve so many people. And a lot of what we do is outside of Save a Warrior too, by sending these returning warriors home with these, what we don't call them tools, we call them ways of being, with these ways of being that they can walk their brothers and sisters through the same journeys. We can teach them how to do meditation and some of the accessibility to some of the programs that we have out there, and also by building connection with other veterans by connecting through programs such as the Generals has down at the museum. Somebody else might be able to walk up and say, "Hey, can I find out about that police you went?" Because a lot of times it starts with connection. It starts with the conversation. That's what we do. Is we are a warrior-led conversation that leads to people getting connected and walking through this journey of healing. And so for us to be able to increase the amount of people that are coming through to get the help is great. There are 17 derivatives of our program around the country where somebody got pissed off, took their coffee pot and said, "I'm going to do what you taught me," which is great because we're saving more lives. But absolutely, the Hillsborough location, which is where we're going to be relocated, is a little bit closer to all the major cities. So now we can get people to fly into Cincinnati and Dayton and Columbus, and it's very difficult where we were located to get people to. And really, it was just the opportunity. We had a gentleman come through our program who was 92 years old, and he was a World War II veteran. And we named our facility after him, Staff Sergeant Dick Wood. And Dick had volunteered for years as a counselor down at Mary Haven and some of the other programs. And he came through, and he came through over different occasions. And he said during one of our ceremonies that we do, he wanted to address the boys, which was the cohort guys he went through. And he turned around and he said, "When I came home from the war, my dad asked me if I was okay at the train station." And he said, "Dad, I'm fine." And he said, "Really what I wanted to do was I wanted to find a 300-acre cornfield and lay down and cry." And then he turned around and he said, "Thank you for giving me my cornfield. Thank you, boys. Thank you, boys." It was like a new Rodney thing, but it just shows that, you know, this is something that's out there for not just returning veterans that recently returned. And so that village was done on behalf of him, and it's named on behalf of him. And we hope to become an institute. You know, we say we're a think tank. We work with lots of great programs around the world, lots of clinicians, lots of great organizations, and this conversation is always evolving to suit whoever's out there. And it's really important that we get as many people through as we can. So
I think that's an important point as well. A lot of the .orgs, they start with a passion to take care of someone, and then suddenly they get enough grants and the like that it's like the WWF. They got their belt, you know, they got mine, and the first thing I'm going to do is rewrite for next year's grant, and then you know you see that on Saturdays they're closed, you know they're closed at 4, stuff like that, and so those that need the assistance really can't get there, or they have to go to someone that's advocating time off or something. So being a living and breathing and evolving one is really significant, and it's kind of rare, and it's good.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really why we're talking today, is to create these support systems, have this conversation, and create these community support systems. It's community leadership in action, and really the discussion as we close the next 7 minutes, where do we go from here? What do we do here as a community to begin to make these connections and to provide these support systems? And I guess the question is, what is maybe from both of you as in closing, what is the single most important thing that we could do as a community here in support of these efforts for our veterans and first responders?
Get a calendar and put something on it, right? So you got to get started. Don't worry about how good it's going to be or anything. You know, if you ever started anything, it's grand opening and one person comes, you know, because there's pizza, right? But if what you're doing is the right thing, you're gonna create something. So you know, whether it's a golf tournament for veterans sponsored and they play for free, or whether it's a 5K run, or whether it's a barbecue, or whether it's a job fair, it doesn't matter. People do that. And find someone who's doing something and partner with them and say this is, you know, the first annual something. And if there's never a second annual because you find that that wasn't really the right thing for here, let the right thing come to you. But if you do more than 2 planning sessions, then you're on your way to, you know, analysis paralysis. And so, you know, book it in a calendar and put it on social media, and then book the second one. You know, just plan them, you know, every 90 days, you know, the New Albany, Philip Height group is doing the next 90-day thing, and then people will come and say, "Hey, how do I get involved? Oh, can I sign up for one in the future?" Pretty soon. We did the in my last job. I wanted to have a win of the week, and if you run a business, you should make every employee say what their win of the week is. We do it here every Friday. Every one of our employees at the end of the year gets to share, and now we have this community. But I had 128,000 people working for me, and so I couldn't talk to all of them every week. So I asked the Army garrisons to nominate someone, and here comes the new guy, the new general, and the first time they came back and said, no one has one. And I said, okay, well, fine, do it, make it happen, do it as a task. And then, so on a worldwide video teleconference, someone who worked maybe 20 years there would come up and say, I've been handing out boots at Fort Benning for 20 years, and I feel so honored to be, you know, called out and thanked for my service. In no time at all, we had 120, you know, in the queue, right? And so then we went 3 times a week, you know, not just on the Wednesday. If you book it and use this as the platform, then in no time at all, you'll be either doing the golf line of effort, the running line of effort, the yoga line of effort, the employment line of effort. It'll come to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just at the Chris Kyle Memorial, They had a saying where it's our duty to serve those that served us. And, you know, I respect the general for not only his length of service and what he's done for this country, but the fact that he's continued to serve the same community that he served while he was in the military. And so many people don't. But it's our job in our community to serve those that come home. We talk about that hero's journey of that life that they showed so beautifully down at the museum, that when these men and women return home, it's our job as a community to make sure that they don't want for anything, especially when it comes to their health. And we say thank you for your service, and the nation will go crazy over 5 years over someone kneeling for the flag, which is a whole different conversation. But the fact that those thousands of names or thousands of numbers of people that have taken their life, that's unpatriotic. Because we as a community, it's our job that when these men come home to look at the general and say, thank you, we've got him from here, or we've got her from here. And knowing that we're putting them back into a community where they're going to be taken care of. The fact that any returning warrior would come back home from war and surviving in what they have to survive in and come here and take their life is just not acceptable. And so for me, as a community, we live in a phenomenal community here. We have great leaders in our fire and police chiefs. We have great leaders. Our mayor has just helped us. We just created a beautiful Veterans Memorial and First Responders Memorial that's going to be here in this community. That's going to be, you know, world class. We have a great program like this. And what I would say to kind of wrap this up is two things. I'm going to be working to legislate. I'm working with state legislation to try to eliminate the ability of people to lose their jobs when they come forward. So it's already enacted in several states. So here in New Albany, we're working to make sure that we can legislate to where if a first responder comes forward because they're struggling for anything other than criminal activity, that they don't have to worry about losing their job, their rank, their position. So that's something we're going to be working on. And also all of these lunch and learns we've been doing, human trafficking, suicide, post-traumatic stress. The one thing they all have in common is most of them originate in family of origin trauma. So as a community, we really need to be really paying attention to what do we do with our young people and what we offer them and some of the programs that the generals talk about that they do with young women. We need to empower our young people, especially the ones that are put off to the side because maybe they're not doing travel and hockey because they don't have the money or they're not doing some of the things. I think that if we really focus on our youth and understand that we all have a responsibility that when our veterans return, that they shouldn't want for anything. You know, Dennis Cassie's in here, what he has done for our World War II veterans and the history of our veterans and the work that he's done. We're really fortunate in this community to have what we have. And we just got to continue taking the minds that are in this room and in this community and making sure that we set the example. Because if we show people how to do it, then you can give it to other people and they can do it and replicate it. So, I do want to end on Save a Warrior is free for all veterans and first responders. If they want to go, it doesn't cost them anything. Well, they got to get themselves there, and if they can't get themselves there, we'll help. But we want them to have some skin in the game. But it costs about $2,900 to put a veteran and first responder through. We don't charge them a dime. And so when you think of charities in the future, please think of Save a Warrior, saveawarrior.org. Got to plug that. Please support the Veterans Museum because it's awesome what they're doing as well. They say it takes a village. It really does. And just keep in mind that this community that you guys live in is doing a lot for veterans and first responders, a lot that a lot of other people are. And thank you for the honor to do this. It's been an honor speaking with you, gentlemen, or speaking beside you, gentlemen. And you know, this starts when we leave here, not, you know. So thank you.
Thank you. We are committed to continuing to work here. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your time and service, both of you. Dennis, thank you so much for the pizza and for the bucks and our local Eagles pizza.
So sorry I was late. Well, I might be responsible for that. We were doing a fire inspection.
Oh, gee.
Actually, that was not. It's actually kind of right what we were talking about today the whole time is, you know, I work with lots of young people and we had to send a young person home last night, and I was actually on the phone with this boy for a while to make sure that he's going to stay healthy today. And so all of a sudden, my employee call says, "Hey, we just, oh my gosh, I was on the phone with this boy for 15 minutes, and I just lost time."
Well, that's more important, for sure. So thank you so much. Just for information for all of you, there is some info in your packets, digital and hard copy. Various resources Please visit the National Veterans Memorial and Museum, as well as the Save a Warrior website for additional information and resources. We are going to be taking a trip to the Veterans Memorial, our Senior Connections group here. We will do lots of those. Our website will also have all these resources listed.
All of it? Did you try any of it?
This will not be our last discussion about this important topic. In the back as well, Zach Matthews is here from the museum and memorial. Tons of information. There's a QR code in the digital packet to join the museum as a member. And there's also an option to memorialize a veteran in the new inaugural member registry, which will be unveiled Memorial Day weekend. So
just real quickly, so you'll see it in there, but Thursday of Memorial Weekend, the wall that heals, the Vietnam 3/4 scale wall with every name of everyone that was killed in Vietnam will be on our, we call it the drop zone. And so right there at the museum, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then it goes. Friday night is a Gold Star Vigil. Gold Stars are families of the fallen. So we have 150 plus families probably that'll do that. During the week, you can do your 5K walk, run, ruck, or roll as well. This year, about 150 motorcycles are going to come to town. Next year, 10,000. So Rolling Thunder from Washington, D.C. is transferring here. 80 Faro and the NVMM are working together, Riker Ford working together. And so you'll see that, which is a tribute to the missing in action and POW population of veterans. And then finally, J.R. Martinez will be speaking. He's the guy who dances the star, the veteran that was badly burned. He's one of our guest speakers for Memorial Day service, which will be a hybrid service, live on the rooftop as well as broadcast. And then if you go to our website or our Facebook, you'll see all the different programming. And there's a new veteran in town. Her name's Whitney Whitaker. She's my daughter, served as captain in the Army and all that, and she is job hunting. So wrap your arms around a veteran and help her out. And if you want to do jiu-jitsu, then this. If you want to do women empowerment, let me know. And if you want to do something else to help someone out, let either one of us or Angela know, and we'll get it done.
Absolutely. No, that's the most important thing. Community connections and finding the resources for those that need it. So thank you again. Thank you all for joining. We'll be back with Lunch and Learn in June on celebrating diversity. Thanks all.
Fantastic.